Yes, folks, and welcome. It's great to have you here. Today, we continue with the next polishing round, and we will take a closer look at the door. In one of the last videos, we already looked at the narrow areas. This means that we will not be polishing up here today in this video. You can take a look at that again in the last video at your leisure. There, I examined the topic of tight, narrow areas in more detail with you. I will also gladly link it for you again down here in the pinned comment section. Today we are focusing on the area down here. Let's take a closer look at it. What should one pay attention to? How should one proceed? Do you start at the top or the bottom? Do you begin with the narrow areas first? You first take a look at the surface. How should we best organize this? Let's take a look at everything right after this. At the same time, I want to test some new polishes. Specifically, I have the cutting, polishing, and finish polish from Soft here, along with the matching pads that I have selected. That means we have a strong medium and a finish polish here to achieve maximum shine. If we have real scratches and need real cutting power, we have the cutting polish and the polishing is in between. So I always find such a three-step system good. I am no longer a fan of polishing systems that have 5, 6, or 7 polishes. It just confuses you completely, and I have to explain a lot about it, and it's really not up to date anymore. In my opinion, a 2-step system or a 3-step system like this is completely sufficient nowadays. Let's take a look at the door here. We'll now take a closer look at all the other tips and tricks and what we are using. Have fun. Such a door differs very, very much from model to model. Not only with the machines themselves, but also with different machines, you have various designs. You have this longitudinal line here, and there are also small bends in it. Some doors are relatively straight, so you really need to look closely at how to best divide it. And the most important thing I can definitely share with you is to organize it in such a way that you don't have to constantly change any support points or polishing machines, and you can already see that we have several areas. Down here is the strip, which is about, I would say, 20 centimeter diameter. We can hold the pad here. 75, 75, 15, 20, so 80, 160, so 170 millimeter from top to bottom. Then we have the area that is quite smooth. Here, I will take approximately 88, 16, 24, so about 25 centimeters here in position. And then up here, we have another 75 millimeter, approximately 10 centimeters. Basically, that means we could now decide, okay, we might only use it for the area down here. In some places, it will still be feasible, but we only have this one strip. So down here, you can also work nicely with 75, 75, one strip this way, one strip back. Here, you can actually work wonderfully with 75, one strip, 2 strips, the 3rd strip up here. And up here, I would definitely also work with 75. You can see it fits ideally in terms of measurement. But what do we do with such edges now? Specifically, these small ones here that we will take a closer look at. Yes, and I mean something like this here, which is unsightly, and I believe it has also been repainted at some point. This means that the paint is not in the best condition either. But you can clearly see that this area up here is very, very narrow. And if we just take a small polishing pad and go up here, you can see that the pad already protrudes very, very much. And this is now a pad for a disc of 35 millimeter, and the diameter up here should be around 42 to 43 millimeters. That's already very, very tight. However, if you place the pad a little bit in the center on this surface, you can still achieve quite a lot. But you can see here it is already extending onto the sealing rubber of the door. So we need to be careful here. We definitely have to tape that off. Then this shouldn't really be a problem up here. Everything is still manageable. A larger pad obviously doesn't make sense. So here you have no chance to start properly. You'll be polishing with the side here. That's an eerie strain. Then you're really overworking the edge here, I must say. So up here with the small pad, and I would actually do the rest with 75. Who says, okay, I would gladly do that with a 125, but I would just leave everything at 75 here because I have the little one with me. And I'll also show you that it really has some power again, and that you can wonderfully use it for this kind of work. So it's important to divide the small support plates ER 75, 75, optionally 125, and here at the bottom, I would also work with 75. Let's quickly take a look at the condition of the paint. So you see here, you can hardly recognize the light source. It is completely milky, and I'll give you a little guide. We'll do 50-50 here nicely, and I'll finish the rest after the video, but this way you can see how quickly you can work here. This is really completely burned into the paint, everything possible. So very, very intense. Let's take a look. Here, you can see it again. When I rest my elbows on my thighs, I am actually right in front of the surface where I want to polish. I hold my machine like this in my hand and I'm exactly at the height of the area where I want to work. If I tilt it slightly, I am right at the surface where I want to continue polishing down here. If you are sitting too high because you have adjusted the chair too high, then you have to polish downwards. This is simply inconvenient. And yes, you can't really sit too low either. At some point, you will be sitting so low that you have to hold the machine up again. It doesn't make sense. Position yourself so that when you take the machine, this is now my tip. Based on my experience, you hold the machine completely horizontal and are exactly in the middle of the surfaces to be polished. That means, look here, everywhere, when I turn the machine, I can completely reach the whole door. This is actually the best sitting height, and at the same time my hand is resting on my thigh and it just falls. It is also possible to polish this way, but then you have to hold it the whole time. I simply prefer to support myself here on my legs and have a really nice stable position, allowing me to work wonderfully. Down here you can also lower the machine or, for example, sit on the floor. It works the same way if you don't have a lift. It should be clear that we cannot polish this plastic trim. Therefore, I would simply do the following now so that we don't bump into anything with the polishing pad. We are back to the topic of masking down here. Once again taped off, it saves unnecessary stress and extra work. Nice and even. The same goes for the bottom. Up here, we had already said that we definitely need protection. And the vehicle has been poorly repainted on the side. So let's see if we can salvage anything here at all, because this is already very, very rough. And I believe there are some initial rust spots up here as well. It's just an old car, obviously, really crazy. Something or someone has polished it before. I don't know what happened here, but it's really extreme. It's not any better here either. Everything feels a bit strange. Should we start with the large area or go along the top first? Here it gets relatively narrow. Look, with 75 meters, yes, we are quite strong here on the door handle where we will then have the tape. I would do all of this with the small pad. I would just go ahead and do the spot as well as I can reach. And this area here, well, that doesn't make any sense either. I would also take the small key and the small machine and use it to work on this narrow area up here. So let's first make this square, and we can already create a nice test board. That means we put a medium strength polishing pad on it, and then we take our polishing compound from Softline. I definitely wanted to test this for you. And then we'll start up here with the small square. It's also a kind of test spot. So now let's put a little polish on here. It's nice and fluid, but not too fluid. I actually think it's done quite well. So let's get started with the first test spot here in this area. And you can already see the same approach as with the other components. First, distribute a bit with step 2. Then, when you notice, okay, as you can see, I have a bit too much polish on for the small area, that's no problem. Just gradually increase the speed a little more, and you will see that the polish will work further into the pad. See, it is becoming clearer and clearer. There is increasingly more of the blue tone. This means that the pad continues to absorb the polish, and you will also notice that something is splattering around. So I try to give you as many tips as possible in the videos. Yes, and then polish evenly here on the surface. Really pay attention to the temperature. It should get warm, but not hot. I always say this over and over again. I also repeat it all the time because not everyone watches all the videos, and this way, beginners can receive as many tips as possible. So you can see here that it is nicely polished into the bed, and I really like it. So far, this is the feedback I can give you after the video. I really like the polishes, and you will see them in many more videos. I want to continue testing them extensively for you. So here, distribute nicely. Step 5, then 3, 4, 5 cross passes on the mini area, and only then the result components. For the small area, it might have been a bit too much polish, but that's not a problem. That's why I work it in gradually and have been increasing the speed consistently. If you notice that you don't want to use the bottom part at first, just take it down. No problem at all. So what I notice already is the instructions for polishing the door and incorporating the soft line. What I really like is that it can be wonderfully polished out again, even though I still have a large amount left on here. Like right down here, it can really be polished out very quickly, even regarding dust formation. Even though we were nicely on a surface here, it has really gotten very, very warm because I have gone over this small area several times. And that worked very, very well. Let's just take a look at what the test bot has already produced. Wow, based on the result, we can check if soft has any shine to it as well. Contains no silicones. This is already very, very important for all the detailers. Also here, regarding the topic of sealing afterwards. Innovative medium abrasive polish for the removal of light scratches and holograms on paints, so that really worked very, very well. Software does not necessarily require a shine of 3 out of 5, 4 out of 6, and 8 out of 12. You really only need a 3-step polish consisting of heavy cut, medium, and finish. And then you can already see here the medium variant, which has worked very, very well. We can also take a look at the tape up here, which will provide a nice comparison of the polishes, including among themselves. How do they differ? Does the cut polish maybe leave some haze or not? And how good is the finish and everything else? So we will take a closer look at that. I just wanted to try it out together with you right here on the vehicle. And I really have to say, take a look at this. I like it a lot. Yes, so I find that test spot 1A shine is absolutely top notch. I wouldn't go over it again with the finishing compound because the shine here is absolutely perfect. Just wonderful. It's almost really just a one-step process here. Despite these extreme scratches that are on top, as well as some really burned in things, very nice. So I would just continue working completely with this now, 2001. Yes. The problem here is that we have a very, very narrow area. It's really borderline with the small polishing pad, and then we need to distribute the polish a bit and gradually increase the speed. Don't jump from level 2 to level 6 right away, because otherwise the polish might splatter against the glass extremely or possibly fly towards you. So here, work the whole thing in nicely. The small polishing pad also absorbs the polish well. And now you see I am only on the highest setting, and now I will go over it evenly here. It is very important to keep it completely straight because we have very little space, so we do not unnecessarily stress the paint surface. Yes, and the same was true down here as well. Here, I decided to completely treat the area below. One could have worked with the ER pad up there, but constantly changing things here doesn't make sense either. So let's quickly use the support plate and the 5 and 30 respectively. Go over the area with the ER pad and simply polish the spot over the handle. Of course, it goes faster with an ER pad, but you need to ensure that you cover such a small area evenly. Again, apply full power, apply a bit of pressure, and let the paint surface get very warm, but do not let it get hot. And then you really have a very nice polishing performance even with this medium cut system and the medium polishing pad. I think it has turned out really, really well. If you notice that there are still a few small residues, just go over it again for a second round. Or if you realize that it needs to go deeper, then apply it more specifically. But I think it has turned out very, very nice. So every area up here is completely done. It really looks very, very good. Yes, down here. There is, of course, much, much more space available. I've also fast-forwarded a bit here. This means the same procedure here again, using 2, distributed with stage 2, and then applying it evenly along the edge. Ensure the support plate is always rotating. You can see these small markings on the support plate remain clearly visible. And when you notice that you are slightly misaligning, you just correct it. I sometimes experience the same thing, where I slightly misalign the support plate because it's sometimes hard to judge from above. But with the marking, it's very easy to see. You can see here it was slightly misaligned, but it was immediately corrected. So this is really very, very nice to do. And this way, you can really work on the small square area here very nicely. The door handle, the recess, and the small edge are then done by hand with the cone pad, or you can use the small polishing pad by hand to get in between a bit, depending on what shapes you find there. Here are still very, very small, fine residues. Go up a bit. Sometimes there are 1 or 2 isolated spots that can be reworked. 2001. But overall, look how this blue is small. It is, as mentioned, just the medium cut variant, medium pad. We could easily go one step stronger, as there are still some very fine imperfections present. But if we just compare it, let's go over here. You can see that here it is also just this classic and beautiful. Here we have really completely removed the writing. Also these burnt-in residues that were visible. So this is how it should be. Yes, this is definitely a clear before and after. Yes, it's nice to see up here. Now let's take a look at the cut from the cutting compound, specifically with the corresponding polishing pad, which also plays a role in this strength. So you can also use a weaker polishing pad, but I would always choose the strength so that if you use a strong polish, you also use the appropriately strong pad. And now let's apply a bit of polish. You can also make 3 small dots here and then spread it out afterwards. That is irrelevant. What matters is that you have a nice distribution afterwards. This means either 3 dots or spreading it evenly on the polishing pad. I will go back to stage 2. Yes, and the same procedure applies with the heavy cut polish and the pad. Here too you can see very clearly that the polish is still a bit pasty, but it has really worked out well. I want to remind you again that this pad is not a completely brand new pad. You can also see a bit of dust flying around. This is simply because there are still residues of other polishes in it. Not everything has been completely removed, but you can see here that the polish is still being nicely absorbed. Here the polish also becomes noticeably clearer. And now we simply go over this with heavy cut polish here, 2001. Again, pay close attention to the temperature, ensuring that the pad is resting evenly and flat. I have kept the original speed here. Nothing is set to double speed, triple speed, or quadruple speed. I always have to weigh how much I show you, what is too lengthy, what is too much or too fast. This is always a bit more difficult for me, so feel free to write it down below. Should I just let the entire polishing process run for 2 minutes in the video? Or should I play it at double speed or skip it? Depending on that, I always try to gradually increase it throughout the video so that not everything completely repeats itself. But you can also see here with the heavy cut variant, the pad handles it wonderfully, and the machine, which you always think, such a small machine has no power, folks. The little one there, it really has power. So you see here, I can easily keep the pad in motion. Very, very nice. So here was the first stroke, and we still have the transition. Now we have worked with the cut, and you can see here, it has really turned out absolutely great. So you have a really, really nice scratch-free surface. Let's go over here again. Where was the spot that got pressed through? Here it is. I hope you can see it. Do you see that? Well, that's not repairable. They would have to grind it properly, if that's even possible at all. So you won't be able to get that out. Let's just see if we can get a little bit more shine out of it with finishing. Especially here in 2001, in the area where we have now gone over it again with the cut. Let's take a look. So here with the finishing compound, you can simply say, okay, you take the medium variant and get a really good cut right away, and the finish is already perfect. Or you say, okay, here on the car, I have a few scratches that are a bit deeper. This means I will first go over it with the strong variant and then quickly do the finishing. This is exactly what we are testing here, whether we will have a nice transition edge regarding the finishing. If that is not the case, then we can see that when the cut is used for as long as possible, it produces a very, very nice finish. And for many vehicles, this can already be a one-step process. Yes, and here is just another test with the finishing and finishing pad to see if there are any residues left behind. A little shine haze, a little haze or something from the polishing with the heavy cut pad, and we will take a look to see if that's the case. This was also a test for me here, and I think it's exciting for you to see as well. Here we should now have a transition that is horizontal, but you can see here, look, there it is. Do you see this transition here? Here you still have this very slight haze. This is from the cutting variant. And now look at how the light changes, as if you were switching from full HD to 4K. That's why I definitely wanted to test this again for you. So here, after the cutting variant, I would also recommend the polishing as a finishing. And then you really have the absolute best and clearest image here. So this is how it should be. A really beautiful blue. And that's why I like these 3-stage polishing systems. You have a clear separation, strong cut, medium cut, and finishing. Max shine production. What can be seen well here is that it works with 2 variants. Here, with the polishing compound, it's almost like a one-step process using a medium strength pad. It has really produced a very, very nice result on the surface, especially in the upper area. Down here, where the scratches became a bit more pronounced, it definitely recommended using the cutting variant, and that was clearly visible. However, you need to go over it again with a finishing polish afterwards. Here. That's why I showed you this again in the video, so that we can easily pull in a very light polishing haze through this strong polishing body, which we can then easily remove in just 1 or 2 cross passes. Here with the finishing variant, I would now work on this vehicle with the scratch pattern by first using the cutting polish and then working with the complete compound afterwards. You don't have to work through this, then that, then the other. Rather, that's the advantage of this modern polishing system, that you can easily skip a polish. If you have any questions about door polishing, feel free to leave them in the comments below. As you can see, there is not a huge difference compared to other surfaces. You just have to work vertically now, and not on a horizontally laid surface, but here, you need to press against the surface like this. We'll also take another look at the rear at the C-pillar, and I'll give you a few tips there as well. Otherwise, make sure to tape off all the door seals, any decorative trims, and also tape off any gaskets with adhesive tape. It will save you a lot of stress and time. I found polishes for the first time here, and using them for the first time is actually very, very cool. If you have used them as well, feel free to write in the comments below how satisfied you are. I will continue working with the polishes here, first finishing the door, and the area further down is exactly the same as above, just 30 centimeters lower, using the exact same procedure. That's why I will calmly finish this now. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm also available anytime via WhatsApp. So you can also notice that these small polishing machines with the small pads here, around 75 and also 30mm, are really very important for polishing. Until then, you're Sebastian. I hope I could help you. See you in the next video. Bye guys.